there's a very short, like maybe 2 pages max, about spouses or significant others and how it's important to whoever you're with to have them be on your team and be supportive. And that's a really critical thing. And if you're not having that, you got to reevaluate your life.
You said this was novel. So speaking of novels,
nice.
Oh,
well done.
Did it. All right. So today we actually, for a while, Cody has really wanted to talk about the book recommendations that we have for aspiring and or current agency owners. And over the years, Cody and I have both read a few books that we relate to our agency, but they're not like they're not all agency specific books. They've just helped us grow independently in our own ways. And so you might find some in here that aren't even applicable to you, but I'll explain why they're applicable to me and why they've helped me kind of grow, and myself as a person. So should I get it started? The first one?
Yeah, for the record, Jake has a lot more than me, so I'm just gonna like wrap up at the end with my very few that I wrote down. Even though
I have a lot more.
I was
I'll
excited
share
about
on
this,
my camera.
I've got very few, but
these are all the books that I have. Oh, and they're not even all of them. There was only like one missing, but and I pulled off the one that you also have, so we do have one overlapping recommendation, which means you have to read that.
Yeah,
you don't have a choice.
All right. Well, yeah, Jake, you get started then. What do you got?
I don't even know which one to start. I don't even know which one to start with because I can't see these are no one particular order, but I'm going to try to do a particular order. I think the first one I'm going to do is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's this guy right here. For those of you watching on YouTube in the future, I do highlight in all of my books. I write notes in the margins when I can, and I do highlights. For this reason, I don't do audiobooks. And I know there are audiobooks and like Kindle and Amazon, or I guess Amazon is Kindle, but like other audio platforms where you can make your own notes in like the online PDF. Like I want to do it physically because I just want to be able to open it and look at it. I don't want to have to try to log in my account and try to find it. But
why is it good? What's good about it? Why you recommend it?
Yeah, so I have a very hard time making friends.
No.
And for my entire life, like everything I've done has been kind of about me, trying to have me impress other people to get them to like me. And I feel like, especially in the agency space, there's a lot of people just trying to impress other people, thinking that they'll look up to them or that they'll like them. And after you read this book,
everybody's a crab. It's a big bucket. Everybody's a crab tearing each other down.
Yeah. But after I read this book, I wish what I would have done is gone through these before this and picked out like my favorite quote from it.
Well, your stack's too tall. This would be here for like 2 hours, right?
I know. But I read this and like my biggest takeaway from it. So that's what I'll do is I'll do my biggest takeaway from each one of them. My biggest takeaway on this is there's a quote in here that goes something along the lines of like, you'll gain 1,000 times more friends by asking them what they do versus telling them what you do. I butchered that. So someone who's read this way more than me will probably be like, no, it's this. But basically the whole premise of that is if you're genuinely interested in somebody, or if you act or are genuinely interested in somebody else and what they're doing in their life, and you just don't say a single thing about yourself without them asking, then people will like you more than if you try to impress them with the things that you've done or accomplished. And so like sometimes when I meet new people, that I won't even tell them what I do unless they specifically ask. And I won't even tell them even deeper than that unless they ask deeper. So if someone says, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm in marketing." And say, "What does that mean? Like what's your job?" Then like I might go in. But I try to keep things ambiguous until they ask. If I can leave like a party or a gathering and know what a lot of people do and nobody knows what I do because nobody asked, then sometimes I feel proud because
Yeah,
I can't
that's an
shut up about
achievement.
myself. Yeah, I
Do you
like to
think
talk
I've
about
read that book?
myself a lot.
Do you
Do I think
know?
you read the book?
Do you think I have? Yeah. Do you know if
No,
I have or haven't?
I don't think you've read it.
I
Oh, okay.
have.
How'd
This
you
is
like
the.
it?
I liked it. It was a long time ago. But
Here's why I don't think you read it though. Like
mm,
because I just feel like you don't care. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
how to
I mean,
win friends and influence people. You're like, why?
uh, yeah. No, I. It's an important skill. Uh, but also, yeah, no, I definitely look at many interactions in a calculated way. So I'm a
Mhm.
robot. But anyway, what's your next one?
Uh, my next one actually isn't in this pile that I showed everybody. My next
Whoa,
one, I just remembered it. It's uh, the what is it? The 7 habits of highly effective people.
whoa.
Um, so I read. This was actually an audiobook one that I read in 2017, and I actually read the eighth highly effective skill. And you can't ask me what they all are right now, but I know it's like the first 3 focus on you, the second 3 habits focus on on your team, people around you, and then the last one is basically like rinse and repeat, sharpen the saw. So I think it's if I remember correctly, begin with the end in mind. First things first. I don't remember the third one, and then there's like think win-win, synergize, and I don't remember the sixth one. Let's look them
When
up.
did you
7
read that?
habits. 2017. I just said that.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, that's okay.
I spaced out.
I talk a lot. So
You're like you
what?
didn't. You clearly didn't read How to Influence People recently because
Yeah.
you clearly didn't listen to anything I just said. That's what you're like.
Okay. Here are the 7. Okay. Number 1 is be proactive. Number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Number 3 is put first things first. And put first things first is actually it's gonna be a precursor to the next book that I recommend. Think win-win. 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. That very much falls into like how to win friends and influence people. Um, and then 6 is synergize, and 7 is sharpen the saw. And there's an 8th one too. And I don't remember what it is, but um, I can't like. I know it's hard. I feel like it's a little hypocritical for me to say, "Hey, I recommend these books," but then like I don't remember a lot of them. Is because I feel like I've already changed my persona and my personality to reflect a lot of these principles that I already agreed with. And when you do that, I feel like the line of delineation is blurred between what you learned and who you are. So um, just keep that in mind. I recommend reading it. I mean, if that's not a good enough reason, then I guess don't read it. But it's by Stephen Covey. So Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So the next one, I'll jump to the middle of my pile here, which is The One Thing. This is actually a book that I picked up at an airport. I don't remember which airport it was though. It was a U.S. one, but I forgot to bring a book, and so I brought The One Thing, and it is by Gary Keller with J. Papasan. It's an unfortunate last name. I still follow the principles of The One Thing. So I also feel like The One Thing is like what you say, Cody, which is like it's just like a glorified blog post that's like 180 pages long. Wait, let's see
Yeah.
how many pages it is. It's roughly like 230. But the principle of this book I really enjoyed, and it's actually something that I communicated to Marcus, my mentee, who is just diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. I can't remember. I have it too. But it's so hard for me to focus on literally everything. But the one thing like really shows you like, hey, what is the one thing you could do today that will set you up for this week? Or what is the one thing you can do this hour that'll set you up for today? Or the one thing this week that'll set you up for this month, this year. And you just keep thinking like that. And that way, when you feel overwhelmed with all the things that you have, you just have to think to yourself, what is the absolute one thing that I can do right now that will benefit me for XYZ? And you can extrapolate that to whatever. What is the one thing I can do this month that'll set my business up for success or my agency up for success by the end of this year? Um, and I've kind of taken that and done the three things. So because I can do three things in a day. So my question to my and I can do three things in a month. I can do three things in a week. Just depends on different magnitudes. But I always say like, what are the three things that I can do today that will help me? And one thing like really extend it really talks about like individually too, like what's the one thing I can do, and you can expand this to different areas of your life. What's the one thing I can do for my marriage that'll help it today? What's the one thing I can do for my business that'll help it for today? So for me, I only have like um two things. I have business and personal life. And so like I say, what are the three things? So sometimes there's two business things and one personal thing. Sometimes there's two personal things and one business thing. It just depends on how far the pendulum has to swing. And that's really helped me just kind of keep things organized. And also what I do on a little tangent is like, I have this book here. It's just it's a, this is my to-do book. It's teal. It matches the cup you got me actually.
Oh, it's
Uh,
like a journal, like a to
Yeah,
do
and
a
it has a
planner.
beaver on it, and it says "damn it." Uh, but yeah, so Lauren got this for me, and it is a journal, but I use it as like a to-do list. So you look on this page, it's like check boxes on everything I have to do. So in the morning, I write out what I have to do, everything, and then I separate or put a star next to the main ones I need to get done. Like if I get none of these done today, what are the three that I have to get done? And then at the end of the day, I rewrite everything out so nothing is crossed out on a new page. So like a fresh slate. And then I start the next day with that and reviewing it and rinse and repeat. And that has like transformed my ADHD and my productivity. All right. Next one.
Next one.
Start with why. Simon Sinek.
Oh,
Uh, I haven't read this book in its entirety. I've skimmed it, and I've also followed Simon Sinek for a while. But his book really does cover his Golden Circle presentation. If you haven't seen that, it's a really good watch. At some point, Simon Sinek and Start with Why is cliche. I mean, he's very much like Gary Vee now. But if you haven't read it or you don't know what the Golden Circle is, I think it's a really good thing to read, because where How to Win Friends and Influence People has to deal with more people liking you and accepting you and your beliefs. Start with Why really shows you how to get people on the same boat as you and believe in the things that you believe in, especially from an organizational standpoint. So if we hire people and we want them to have the same goals that we have, how do we get them to do that? And it starts with the question, why are we doing this? Um, and if your question, if the answer to that question doesn't motivate the people below you or that you bring onto the team, then either you're bringing in the wrong people onto the team or your motivation for why probably needs to be reflected on. Um, I put The Master Key to Riches in this
oh,
pile,
good.
but I put it in this pile for you because I have not read this book all the way through. I only read like the first like 30 pages, I think.
Mm,
Um, so
it's pretty dense.
I wanted you to give, you don't have to recommend it, but I want you to give a brief rundown of why you recommended this book to me.
uh, why I can't remember. I can't remember why I recommended it to you. I feel this was a switcheroo. Like I was just ready for all your books, and I'm just here eating my popcorn. Like, yeah, Jake's got this book. And
So by
then,
Napoleon Hill, and he also wrote
yeah, Think and
Think
Grow
and Grow
Rich.
Rich. Yeah, which I
Yeah,
think you also recommended, right?
yeah. I think Master Key to Riches is the deeper Think and Grow Rich. It's a little bit more metaphorical and that sort of thing, but honestly, the only thing I can remember about that book at this point in time is there's a very short, like maybe 2 pages max, about spouses or significant others and how it's important to whoever you're with to have them be on your team and be supportive. And that's a really critical thing. And if you're not having that, you got to reevaluate your life a little bit, I think. And I agree with that.
I think Alex Ramazzi talks about that a little bit in a recent podcast episode about if you want somebody in your life, that person ought to have the same goals as you. If he doesn't say the word should, which is I've been trying to do that just to see how difficult it is, and it's really hard
to not say should, or
to not say should. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or have to. So like basically, nobody should have to do anything. But he says if you want this, then this is what you have to do. But if you don't want that, then this is what would be ideal or something.
Yeah, I guess should kind of implies that you're making assumptions on the other person's motives and goals and that sort of thing. Then you can't really, there's no reliable way that you can gauge somebody else's devotion or dedication to a particular thing.
I can't remember so I've been diving into the whole guru space, and because I got it. One of my books in my list here is Art of War, and got to know your enemy, Sun Tzu. So I've been diving into the guru space, and forever I'm like, oh, Alex Ramazzi, just another like newer guru, and I know he's not newer. He's newer in terms of relativity, in terms of like the public eye, because he grew his business in private. But I think my perception of Alex Ramazzi was wrong, because what I hate is his followers. His followers are like Tool fans, like the band Tool. Well, they're like Tool is good by itself, but like their fans are just awful. And every time I saw like other fake gurus who like quoted or like aspired or followed or whatever Alex, I was just like, God, I hate Alex Hormozi. But then like I started like actually listening to his stuff. I'm like, oh, I feel like he's just attracting a big audience, and a lot of that audience is full of bad actors. Because there's nothing there's very little. I'm not going to say there's nothing. There's very little I disagree with Alex Hormozi on. But he did have that episode about. It wasn't an episode about it. He was just asked about having a spouse. So it just related to that. But all right. What should I do? Should we do?
You said the Art of War. What's touching that one physically?
We'll jump to the. Oh, it's like on the bottom.
Oh,
what's touching it?
Yeah.
Oh, I have 2 Arts of War in here.
So that was important.
So there's a bunch of different translations of the Art of War. I don't like the Art of War that much to have 2 different translations of it. I have one that I bought, which is a very thick boy. I got that in 2017, but 2017 was a big book phase for me. But what I thought I was grabbing, the second copy of it, Lauren got this for my my wood table over there as like a decorative piece. But I thought it was Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. So that's what's touching it. So I'll cover both of those since they're kind of odd topics. So the Art of War, again, a thick boy. And if you're on video and you're looking at my copy of it, there's tons of copies of it. I just picked this one because it has like the most footnotes, and it's, in my opinion, one of the best translated. There is a lot of highlights in here.
Who's the publisher? If people want.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, it's translated by Thomas Cleary. And I don't. How do you find the publisher? I don't do books.
Penguin Random House.
Shambhala, Boston and London, 2003. Yeah, Shambhala Publications, Shambhala Publications, translated by Thomas Cleary, and the copyright date on it is 2003. But there's just, I think this is a book that I need to read again and again and again, because there's a lot in here related to basically war, and it's basically how to avoid war, like how to at all costs how to avoid conflict. But if you do get into conflict, here's your way out. And this in a lot of business schools in the US, this is like required reading. Because yeah, there are a lot of principles in here that apply to war, but because everything is strategic, there's actually no like physicality to it. So one of the things, one of the most famous quotes from this book um, is basically the abridged version is know your enemy. So I said that earlier, but basically there's like three things. Uh, if you know yourself but not your enemy, victory is uncertain. If you know your enemy but not yourself, what does like victory is also uncertain. I can't remember. I'm butchering this. But if you don't know either yourself nor your enemy, defeat is certain. Let's see. Know yourself. Quote Sun Tzu. Know your enemy. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I butchered it. I have the worst memory in the world. But let me read it here. It has to do. There's numbers in it. Let's see. Let's do images. I like to look up quotes on images because it's easier. Got it. If you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So I like this because it gives you a perspective on competition. So I know Cody doesn't like competition. Like he doesn't like talking about it, thinking about it. Doesn't even believe it exists. And to an extent, I like that logic too. I like the idea of thinking like, hey, abundance, like there is no competition, doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, there is other places that people can go and do. And if you're not paying attention to what's out there in the market, you can be swallowed. And it's important to keep some level of focus or idea on what else is out there and how you separate yourselves from the market. You don't have to I don't recommend following your competitors on social media, but every now and then maybe do a spot check, see what's going on. Cody doesn't have to do this because I do it.
Yep.
So
do you think I've read this book? I forgot to ask. I didn't ask it with other ones, but
I do feel like you've read this book.
I haven't.
God, I want to get okay.
I read
let's
the
go
Prince,
back.
though.
Let's go back. Okay, let's go back. Did you read Start With Why? Simon Sinek?
Nope. I've seen the video, but I haven't read the book.
And the one thing I know you haven't read that one because I've talked to you about it before.
Yep.
Okay. Art of War, great. That's just one example. There's a ton of other examples out there that you can apply to business. The whole time you're reading it, just think about business. If you're thinking about actual war, don't read it. That's weird. All right. Sun Tzu. Okay. What's cool about the Art of War is if you're like a big Gears of War, Apex Predator, or Apex fan, like video game wise, there are literally principles in that you can apply to Apex. It's crazy. Like how to like surround your enemy and things like that. It's awesome. Well, I have the Prince. It's just in my other room. So this is the copy of Art of War that we're going to pretend is the Prince. But you see how it's way more aesthetically pleasing than the other one?
It looks very nice.
Yeah, I like this one. Lauren did a good job. And there's pictures in this one. That's how you know it's a good book.
Picture books.
No, there isn't any pictures. It's just very... Cody, what does this say?
I don't know those. The middle one is... Nah, I don't know. I should know that one, but I don't.
It's in Mandarin. But anyways, the Prince. I read this in Great Books 2 class with Jenny, actually. We read this book together. Not like together, but as a class. And the Prince is very much... I think a lot of people have heard about the Prince when they hear the phrase "is it better to be feared or loved," because that comes from the Prince. Mm-hmm. And the Prince is really about leadership on kind of an individual level. So I think like the Art of War and the Prince are really good to to read like together. But there's one thing that really sticks out in my mind, and it is like there's a scene in it that Machiavelli paints where he says, invite all of your enemies over to dinner, have like this big like banquet, or basically extend the olive branch. And like when everybody's laughing and having a good time and drinking, slip out of the room, have your guards come in and slit all their throats. And I was just like, that's so metal.
That's a big shift.
And I was like, and he's like,
I wasn't ready.
He's basically like, that's how you that's how you win. And on one level, like you have to like ethically think about how you want to operate your business, and then you also have to be like, what I think Gary Vee says, like there's two ways to build the tallest building. You can either build the tallest building or you can tear all the other ones down. And I'd rather build the tallest building. So I just like the prints because there's other things in there too that show you how to be a better leader. So on the topic of is it better to be feared or loved, the actual answer is in the book. I'm not going to say what it is though.
Read the book.
Yeah, and it talks about your subordinates. Like, is it better for your subordinates to love you or to fear you? And it's not what you think. Okay, I gotta crank some of these out, man. We're already at 37 minutes. All right.
Yeah, how many you got left? What are you down to?
I got 5. Okay. I'm gonna do Jeffrey Gitomer's The Little Red Book of Selling. I am not a salesperson. I've never been a salesperson, but this book was kind of like my introduction to sales. And it isn't like a lot of the times when someone says like ask for the sale on the phone or ask for the sale right now, I will never do that. That'll never be my sales approach. I will never be pushy. But there's a lot of stuff in here like that a lot of people agree with and kind of perpetuate and express the cliche, which is silence is a huge it's a huge selling tactic. So if you say your prices, don't say anything. Shut up. Like when I worked at our old agency together, there were like some of the when they were hiring new sales reps, and the sales reps were on like a pitch with the regional manager, and the regional manager was just like, okay, say it. And I'm like, they said the price, and he would like put the phone on mute, and he would say, okay, shut up. And then there would be like a weird 60 seconds of silence, nothing. And then all of a sudden, like it becomes like this game of chicken where it's like, okay, who's gonna break the silence first? Because the person to break the silence first usually loses. And the dealer would come back and say, the dealer is the client, and they would say, all right, like, let's go. And I've used this on all our sales calls a lot. Well, I'll just say the price and I just won't say anything. And sometimes I feel like I make them feel awkward because I said my price and they thought I would say more, and then like I didn't. I'm like, that's what it is. So do you want it or no? And like, but the other thing that I really liked about it in this book was there's a phrase that Jeffrey Gitomer really likes. He's got this whole blog. You could follow him. I mean, last time I followed him was like 2018, and he posts like daily like sales tips. But one of them was people hate being sold to, but they love to buy. And I thought that was really important. So it basically illustrating like don't sell to anyone at all, but get them to buy your product by way of realizing that your product solves the challenges that they have. So if you're going to somebody and you're saying, hey, my business or this product is going to increase your sales or increase your revenue by X%, you're going to get this many leads. What if that wasn't their problem though? If that's not a problem of theirs, then they don't want to be sold to. Now, when this usually works, when those tactics usually work, like we'll increase your leads, we'll increase your revenue with our marketing programs. When that does work, out of the 100 people you cold call, and it works 10 times, if that maybe, one time, it's because you called somebody who was struggling with leads. And they are buying the solution to their problem. So this book really teaches you to focus on the problem of the business owner and not what you have to sell. All right. That's like the only time I'll ever talk about sales because I hate sales.
I the one that I didn't write this one down, but it made me think of the Boron Letters by Gary Halbert.
I was gonna bring that one in for you.
Oh, really?
That
Yeah.
was, yeah.
The only thing I'll mention from it is that because you're saying, I think it's very common in our industry for people to negotiate and try to haggle down prices and that sort of thing. And there's a part in the book where he talks about similar concept. You'll have the client say, well, let's do this or let's try this. And he equates it to, I think it's a heart surgeon is what he says. He's like, do you go to your heart surgeon who is an expert at heart surgery and say, well, what if we try this? How about we try it this way? What if we don't do it like your expertise knows, but what if we try this instead? Like, no, that's weird. So why do you do it in advertising? Why do you go
So
to the person who is an expert in advertising and say, how about I'll pay this instead, or how about we try this tactic because I think it'll go better? It's like it's insulting. It's an insult if you are good at this and you value your expertise in the field. So anyway,
I like that. That was a good. That was a good add on to that because it's very much how I sell, which is I don't. But people buy from me. So if you don't like the price, like that's fine. Go somewhere else. But we know our prices. But just for some background, the information on the Boron letters, it's definitely worth a read for sure. It's a relatively short book, and I have 2 copies because Cody sent me one, and I was meant to send it back, but I started writing in it, and I was like, oh. Then I feel like you sent me another one, and then I still have it. So
that's something that I do. If I feel strongly that somebody would benefit from a certain book or something, I just buy it and ship it to them because I don't know. It happens all the time where I have feelings about book recommendations. I guess the first one
what are
that
your
bothers
feelings?
the first one that bugs me the most is that people recommend books to other people not because they think that they'll help the other person, but because they were helpful for them, and that's not helpful to the other person. So the best
So
example I can
this whole podcast.
give, I didn't put mine down that way though. So what was it? I lost it. What was I going to say? Oh, okay. Mark Manson, right? Very cool, very good writer. I've read a lot of his stuff and I like a lot of it. I think he's very interesting. And then I'm going to break the PG-13 taboo here, and I'll probably drop the F-bomb more than once just because it's the title of his book.
Do you mean you'll drop the SpongeBob dolphin squeak?
Yeah, please edit it out then. So I'll say it slowly so you can beep it. His book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? Uh, I don't, and Jenny's laughing. She's right next to me. I can't tell you the number of people who said, Cody, you should read this book. And what they actually meant was, Cody, you could have written this book, right? It's, and it's nice and it's flattering, but I think that's important when if you,
you couldn't have written that book though, because that's how little you don't give a fuck.
yeah, I think so. When I think of book recommendations, I don't think that way. I don't think, oh, this was very helpful for me at this point in time in my life. So, you know, I'm going to recommend it just because it was. No, I try to think of the other person and what they're experiencing and what might help them. And I think even so, there's another. Maybe I can dig it up and maybe you can drop it uh, in the show notes. But it's called, what's it called? It's an article called. It was on the All, I think, and it's called like advice is worthless or something like that. And it goes into the logic of why people are weird with advice, and the main thing being when people ask for it, they're usually seeking mere information. They just want to be told back the information that they're looking for, right? And if they don't,
Mm-hmm. They're not seeking for advice, they're seeking for validation.
right, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. So let me write it down. I'll try to dig that up and see if we can find it.
An interesting fact in the Boron letters, that's actually written it's a book that's compiled by Gary Halbert's son, Bond Halbert, where Gary is actually in prison and he's writing letters to his son about basically, advertising and sales. And then so Bond puts it together, and then makes all the money off of his dad. I'm pretty sure they split it. I don't know how it works, but it's really cool to read that and knowing that like all these were like written in prison, and then like Bond applies it to like actual life, and actual marketing.
But yeah,
But
it's one of the better ones, I think, as far as marketing books go. It's not my top, but I do. If you've read the other ones, then I think it's a good read.
so there is one book that I sent you. So Cody does this thing where he sends me books that he thinks I should read, and then I don't read them. Um,
Even though I do all the work, I'm like, I will
there
get
are
you the
some
book
though.
to
I
your door.
read the Boron Letters. I started reading the Master Key to Riches. I didn't finish it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't actually care.
You sent me Rework. I read that, which is on the list. And you sent me On Writing Well, which is on your list.
Yep.
So I sent you Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And I don't think this was a book that Cody would have taken anything from, but as the CEO, I was like, this is the direction the business is going. So read this book and understand how our finances are going to be handled. But I think after you read it, you're like, actually, yeah, this makes sense. It just needed to be about 100 pages shorter.
Yeah. I haven't read Simon Sinek's book, but I imagine there's a lot of that, right? This is the nature of the modern world, is that cliches are summed up easily, but if you want to sell it, you have to extend it and prolong it so that people feel better about spending their money on it, instead of just accepting that most of the problems in the world aren't new. I digress. This is me and my stoic life. Anyway.
So, Profit First. This we've talked a little bit about this book. We've mentioned it and the Profit First system, but the biggest thing about it is that a lot of every business out there in the history of businesses has always paid profit last. So after expenses, after payroll, after taxes, after owner's withdrawal, then they would have whatever is left is for profit. And that's how businesses aren't profitable, is because there's nothing left. And sometimes they're running in a deficit. But if you start paying the profit first, before your expenses, before your payroll, before your owner's withdrawal, the business will always be profitable. So like for us, if we put 10% into profit as soon as we get paid, so if a client pays us $1,000 in margin, and as soon as that comes into our account, $100 goes into the profit account. That's 10%. And then after that, you start segmenting and walling off other accounts. So like we have, as an agency, we have marketing, we have, operating expenses and payroll, and we split those off. And we can do a whole episode on this, but if we have operating expenses at 10% allocation and they start exceeding 10% allocation, then we need to cut operating expenses, because we've only allowed 10% to be allocated towards that. And we can't get things if we're at 10% and we want our new software, can't do it. Just the way it works. Highly recommend the Profit First. If you don't read any book in this category, I recommend Profit First. Cody probably disagrees with me, but as a business owner, this is what I recommend.
I read the first chapter. It was cool. It was good. I liked it. I just
you read it and you sent me a message and you're like, could this just be like a blog post?
I felt like everything was told in the first chapter, and then the rest of the time was just going to be spent convincing me why it was a good idea, but I already accepted that it was a good idea and it was fine. So like, okay.
Which is a feat on its own, to get you to accept something as a good idea in, 10 pages.
It seems really smart. It makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of business owners get thrown off by the idea of walling off their money in certain allocated
we have like
places, but
6 or 7 accounts in our bank account, and it's when you do accounting, it's like it's not usually like that. You usually have 2. You have like a savings and like a checkings, and then like you just have this pool of money. But in your books, it's all separated out. For us, in our books, it is separated out, and we have the bank accounts to match it. So like you could see where all the money is. All right. I pulled this book out because I thought you were going to talk about it. This is the
Advertising?
Scientific Advertising, by Claude C. Hopkins. I haven't read this, but you sent it to me, and I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's good. I
Why
put
did
it
you?
on the same tier as the Boron Letters. Um,
So
to me,
not
these
quite worthy to be on your list, but worthy to send to me.
I was okay. I was under the impression with the list. I'm like, okay, if they're only going to read 3 books, if I tell them 3 books that they should read, then that's what I was going to do at the very top. But for
So we
me,
didn't talk about that at all. You're just like, let's do book recommendations, and I'm like, here's all mine.
my bad. Okay, it is a good book. I think there's a lot of things that bother me with modern advertising and marketing, and it's the industry, and it's people really just trying to validate their own beliefs that have been perpetuated and they believe because somebody else told them, and it's not really founded in anything. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
Oh,
So scientific advertising it goes back to, it's an old book. Right? I'd say go look for it on eBay somewhere because it's very old. But it just says your advertising should prove that it's worth it. If it's not, then don't do it. You
mhm.
Whatever money you're investing, you should be getting a return on it. And if not, it's not effective marketing and advertising. That's the
Like
just the
all the
premise of the
like
book.
quote unquote branding, or like I'll get you
Hmm.
more TikTok views. Like who gives a
Exactly.
fuck?
Views, impressions, all these things. If you aren't seeing a positive return on your investment, it is bad advertising. And of course, nobody likes to, yeah, nobody, especially once you get to the whales, right, the very large clients that have huge marketing budgets. And uh, why not? Right? If you're in that position where they're going to be spending the money anyway, and if you don't tell them how they can spend it, they're just going to go find a different place somewhere else because at that big of a company, once it gets that size, they have a budget and it's their job to spend it. They got to put it somewhere. And if they don't, they're going to be in trouble. It's a very weird place to be. But anyway,
Mhm. I don't have the book here, but Gary V's Crush It, and subsequently Crushing It, the follow up to it. Um, for those of you who listen to the podcast frequently, I don't really favor Gary V. I don't hate him. I uh, just kind of find him cliche, and he's like the Nickelback of gurus. Just like
Nickelback.
it's just like he wasn't bad when that's all he was, but then like
He's like a guru
every,
meme now.
yeah, he's just a meme, and I think he dove into a period of like just like saying shit for shock value, and that's where he lost me. But those books actually kind of kickstarted the agency of, you know, one, you know, picking a niche and sticking to it, and then two, also becoming an authority in that niche. So if you listen to our episodes on how to write for niche publications and just like, you know, building relationships, and then also I feel like we had one, another one, but about just kind of being that face in the industry and crush it, and crushing it, like really drive that home, and crushing it gives you actual examples of people who have applied the principles and crush it. A little background is I accidentally read Crushing It first because I thought it was Crush It, and so like I read it backwards, and it was still fine. Like I didn't even know there was a prequel until like I finished Crushing It. So um, if you can find either one of them, I would recommend reading them. Okay, next one I have on the list is 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James.
Are you serious?
No.
It was just in the stack.
So Lauren, I told you about my little table over here. She has 3 books on there for decoration. One of them is The Art of War. The next one is where is it? Oh, The Wealth of Nations by
Ah, John
Adam
Adams.
Smith. Adam Smith. John
I
Adams is
was,
a founding father.
I was like, there's an Adam, right?
Yeah, I
It
know.
was just,
I get it.
it was
I
some
get
super
hit.
white guy name.
Yeah, I get Adam Smith and um, Adam Scott from Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, by Adam Smith, and it's basically the capitalist version of the Communist Manifesto,
Hmm. Right.
which I also have. I also have the Communist Manifesto. It's in the other room. That's an Art of War thing. Know your enemy.
Who wrote that one? The Communist Manifesto.
Karl Marx.
Yeah. See, his name's so much easier to remember instead of two white guy
What's
first
crazy is they're
names.
both like yeah they're both easy to like to say, but like to remember it's like it's one of those white guy names.
I think it's because Marx it's with the X, right?
Yeah.
So for some reason that just sticks in my brain easier. Like maybe if
Mhm.
this, I can't remember what is it? John and Smith,
Adam Smith.
Adam. See, come on, like it doesn't get more white guy than that. You can even mix him around. Maybe his name. If you told me his name was Smith Adams, sure,
Yeah.
I believe you. I have no reason to think. You could say any other white guy and just throw Scott Smith. I come on, it's not fair.
So
Anyway.
I have those 3 books. I have The Art of War. It starts with they're stacked on top of each other. So it's The Wealth of Nations, The Art of War, and and then 50 Shades of Grey. And Lauren did that. She was like, "I'm gonna make this office very classy." But then she ordered 50 Shades of Grey and she put it on the table and she like trying to think I wouldn't notice. And so I just left it there. And anybody who comes in the office, I just wait to see if they find it. And I posted a picture on my Facebook page actually of all these books, and I snuck 50 Shades of Grey in there. And some people liked it, and then some people like called it out. They're like, "Wait a minute." someone goes, "I agree. Agencies should focus on getting a pleasure room." And my thought process is like, well, I didn't read it, so I wouldn't know.
I was gonna ask that. I'm like, have you read it?
No, I think I did watch it, but maybe just bits and pieces of it. Not
It's a thick book.
entirety.
You showed it. I was surprised at how thick it was.
You know what else in this book is thick?
Yeah, I opened that up for that.
All right, moving on to real books. I'm going to do the E-Myth Landscape Contractor. So this is by Michael E. Gerber and co-written by Anthony C. Bass. Anthony C. Bass is actually a person in the landscaping industry, and Michael E. Gerber is the person who wrote the E-Myth, the original E-Myth. So there's the E-Myth stands for I think it's the entrepreneur myth. But he does all these offshoots, all these niche books, which is smart. Niching down. We should do an episode on niching down. But it was really cool because a lot of people in my industry, a lot of landscapers were reading this book. And I was like, I should read the book to know what we're talking about. And so it really just helps me understand what a good landscaping company looks like from an internal perspective. And so it allowed me to not only come into this just from a marketing perspective, but also being able to apply what I know about marketing into my clients' world and understand some of the struggles that they have, not only with just, getting leads, but also, pricing their services or finding, clients or not clients, employees, things like that. So if there's an E-Myth for your niche, I recommend picking it up. Or just read the E-Myth Contractor or the E-Myth in general. E-Myth is a good book.
Do you think I've read that one?
I assume. No.
Yeah, you're right. I haven't. I think it was Dave. I think Dave was the one. I asked him once what books I should read. And I think that was one. He said like 2. That was one of them. And he goes, but you probably could have written it. So I think it was Dave who said it's fine. Like it's all about systems and processes, right? And like unsexifying the entrepreneurial concept and how it's actually not super exciting. The actual work is pretty boring, and that's where you actually get the growth part.
Literally, the subtitle of it is why most landscape companies don't work and what to do about it. And so I think the original subtitle is like why most companies don't work and what to do about it. So the E-Myth, why most companies don't work and what to do about it, just by itself. Hey, you guys don't know Dave, but if Dave recommends a book, you should read it.
Yeah, Dave. Shout out Dave the Ninja.
Dave M.
We won't completely.
Unless you want us to. When we mentioned Lauren's coworker the other day, she was upset we didn't say her name.
Oh, really?
Teresa, this is for you.
Teresa, that's a nice name.
All right. The next one I'll talk about is one that you recommend and sent to me. One after this.
Oh, okay. So this is the final 2.
Yeah, so this will be a little bit longer episode, but we get some feedback that if the longer episodes are good, then that's fine. Rework.
Yeah.
I lost my cover to this, so it's by by guys who created the project management tool Basecamp. Don't know their names, but who are they? I lost my cover. Their information is only on the cover.
I can't remember their names. They're the Basecamp guys. That's what I know.
Rework or Jason Fried or Freed. and David Hansen. So they created Basecamp, and basically the essential part of this book was, hey, build a company that you want, not what your customers want. And if customers fit or clients fit outside of the mold of the direction that you want to take the company, don't change for them. Do what you want to do. And I actually wrote a whole book report on this on my website at jconley.com. That was back when I was like, I'm going to write book reports for every book I read. And then I did one and I didn't do it again. So Rework is on there. That's kind of what I took from it. And there's a phrase that you said in one of our earlier podcast episodes, which was every no and every yes that you say should point your business in the direction that you want to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is basically how I summarize Rework.
Yeah, I think Rework is kind of in the same vein as the 4-Hour Work Week, in that both in some ways have been a little memeified, but they were the first ones to introduce many concepts. And Jake's got the 4-Hour Work Week.
I'm holding up the 4-Hour Work Week. Right? It's not a book I recommend though.
Yeah. So I think maybe the Rework depends on how much of this Kool-Aid you've drank so far. If you're already fully in the remote work and you can do things however you want in your business, if you already know and understand that stuff, then great. But otherwise, I think it was kind of the first book to introduce many of the concepts that we now kind of take for granted in the remote agency world, or SaaS. SaaS is the other thing, of course, because it was Basecamp. So
we were on Basecamp, I think, while we were reading that, and then right about when I finished, we left. It had nothing to do with the book. It was just like it didn't fit our agency model, and they weren't. And after we read the book, we're like, well, they're not going to change it for us. So
yeah, and I know that they recently Basecamp had issues, so I don't think it changes any of the importance of the things that they said and believe, but it is one of those instances where they come in strongly with, this is our philosophy and that sort of thing, and then it's not in the book, but later on, if you follow the story, you kind of see how implode is too strong of a word, the issues that they also face as a result of that too. So if you're interested, just do your own research on what has happened with Basecamp. But
I didn't even know anything happened with them.
Yeah, I don't want to right now.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. All right, I have one last book. I actually have two books, but it's the same book as you. Well, one of them. So this one I haven't finished yet, but I'm eager to finish it because I have loved everything I've heard about it, and it's made me feel like I am on the path. The simple path to wealth.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. I didn't know you had that one in there.
Yeah, by J.L. Collins. Yes. You recommended it. This isn't a book that you sent to me, so I bought it. And I'm seeing highlights on page 66. So, I see a bookmark on page.
I thought I bought that one.
91.
I was, man.
I thought I did. I'm on chapter 11 right now, but this is it's all about where to how to invest basically, and how to not be stupid. And it's not like the crypto traders and the day traders out there that are buy high, sell low, or it's very much very simple. Stick a bunch of money in the S&P 500, and then if you want to scrape $100,000 off the top every year when you get 2 million in there.
2.5 in Vanguard, guys. 2.5 in Vanguard.
And Cody says 2.5 in Vanguard a lot, and I think he said it on the show quite a bit. That's where this comes from.
Yeah.
And basically the whole process, the whole premise of it is, if you can get 2.5 million in Vanguard, the average, not interest, the average,
the money you can expect to
growth?
get out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. The average growth of it, the average return is roughly 4%. So that's been recorded since the start of the S&P 500. So, I mean, some years you'll have 11%, some years it'll go down, but average out to 4%. But basically, what it's saying is every single year you could pull off $100,000 out of it and have $100,000 salary for literally doing nothing, because you have $2.5 million in Vanguard. Obviously, there are some caveats to that, but it's the same. It's basically a very similar premise. just kind of teaches you how to do that and how to avoid all of like the fake, financial planners out there and fake gurus. You don't have to be an expert investor to start sticking money into Vanguard today.
Mhm.
That's all I have besides the one that we overlap with. So after an hour and 5 minutes, I'll let you tell your three.
That's
For what
hefty.
it's worth, you wanted to go after me. You said
Yeah,
Jake go first, so I was like, all right, buckle in.
that's how I like. I like being the, you know me. I like hanging out, but not being upfront. So it's kind of fun this way. I only had 3 books, but maybe I can talk about them slightly longer, and to make it seem like it was more than what I actually have. Okay, and yeah, if you only read 3 books, I think most people would benefit from all of these in one way or another. In business and in the digital marketing agency space. And the first one is On Writing Well, the classic guide to writing nonfiction by William Zinsser. And this is one that I buy with newbies and read along with them because
Yeah, you
I
did that
think
with Eva.
there's so much to get from it. So it's kind of split in 2 parts. I think the first half of the book is only, I can't remember how many pages. It's comparatively short to the whole thing too. You don't even have to read part 2 if you only read part 1. The main thing about it is that when okay, when you go to college, everything that they teach you about writing is the opposite of what you should actually start doing in the real world. If you start beefing up your vocabulary to seem more important than uh, it is, like people intentionally make things difficult to seem important. I've said this before that novices complicate things to prove their worth, and experts simplify them for the same reason. Same thing goes with writing. I strongly believe that if you write concisely and clearly and simply, it just goes along. It goes so much better with client communication too. So it's a great one for simplifying and learning how to write well. And I think everybody can take something away from it. I know I have, and even when I reread it, I still take things away from it.
There are actually 4 parts to it. There's
4?
the principles. Yeah, so I've got it in front of me. This is what it looks like.
Uh,
Um,
I think maybe
there's
my
there's
copy was only the old editions.
the principles, the methods, the forums. So the forums is where like you stop. You don't read the forums. I didn't read the forums. Um, I did read chapters 11 and 16, which are nonfiction as literature and business writing, or business writing in your job.
Mhm.
But they have other like how to write about places like in travel, or how to write about sports, or how to write about the arts and humor. And then part 4 is the attitudes, and this would actually be a good part to read too, because this talks about like the sound of your voice and like how some things can come off if you only read part 1, like Cody, which explains why uh some of your directness can kind of be off-putting because you didn't read part 4.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I will say, like, you get the message across, but I'm just like, is he mad?
Hey, I'm a robot. It's fine. I know it. And
What are the
anyway,
other 2?
okay, other 2. Did you have this one? Influence the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert. I don't know how to say his last name. It's like Cialdini. I probably butchered
It'll be
it.
in the show notes. No, I only had How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay, so this one, I think if you read one marketing book, this is the one you read. I I majored in communication at college, and I took many courses that were marketing adjacent, and I was surprised in that most of the things that I learned in classes that I spent a lot of money for were really just covered in this one book. So you can get most of that college education just by reading this, and it's the basics, the very fundamentals of marketing. I think it's marketing 101, and you should read it for that reason.
Nice. You haven't recommended it to me yet, so
Really?
I've never heard that.
Oops, sorry.
Send me an email about it, and then I'll purchase it and not read it like the rest of them. Like you got me the Count of Monte Cristo as like a fun read, and I was like, this book is so long. Like,
Yeah,
I watched the movie.
it's so good though. If
I
I
will
yeah,
eventually. I'll read it. Eventually, I read it when I get to the point where I'm like,
it's a beach
flying all the
book.
time.
Like you got it. Yeah, no, you need all the time in
Yeah.
the world to read that one because it'll take you half a year. No joke.
Mhm. I don't like audiobooks either, so I'm not gonna like read it. I feel like that's cheating.
Mhm. Okay,
All right, what's your last
final
one?
one was Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. Uh, this is one I can't even remember if I've gotten to the actual end of the book because every time I reread it, it blows my mind. It is one. It is the most condensed
Expensive
book.
book in the history of books.
It is extremely expensive, and if you only get one book, let it be this. Like if you want the book on advertising, it's this one, and it's littered with typos and it's terribly. The publishing quality is awful, but the material is it's just amazing. It
I still
teaches you
haven't.
how to do good advertising.
I still haven't read it. It's like $200 book.
Yeah, yeah, and it really, it I can't hype it up enough.
Textbook.
It is. If you only have one book issue, and there have been times where I remember when I was still at Spin Tech, I would reference it. I'd look it up and like just flip to different pages because it gives examples and ideas on how to do different things. And yeah, there's so many concepts that I've learned from there that I've had to explain either to other marketers or to business owners because they seem just they seem innate, like you should know them, but uh, it explains them just obviously so that you're able to understand. I don't know. I'm not doing a good job explaining it, but you should
I mean,
read it. I do recommend it.
yeah, I really want to read it. I just there's a PDF version online, but I'm like, I'm not going to read a PDF. I'm not going to read it in one of those damn electronic books. I want a real thing I can hold, like you.
That's all. Those are all the ones that I had. Those are my big three.
You said to have a fun book to read, and I don't have one. My fun book would be The Art of War because I honestly I don't read. I don't read as much as people say, and it's funny because I kind of go on. I thought about like getting audiobooks now because I run a lot, and so I'm like, this would be the perfect time to listen. I can read infinite books because I'm double timing, but I would still have to purchase the physical copy and then sort through it and do my highlights. I just mentally I have to do that. And I remember you saying all the time, you're like, you only have so much time in your life, and taking reading a book takes up time. So I have to decide at which books I'm going to read before I die. Because if
Yeah,
I read one book, that means I can read one less book before I die.
yeah. You think of all the books that are out there. I've spent these are one of my. This was a shower thought one day of like, think of all the books that exist in the world, and then think of how many you read in a year, and then how many years you have left before you die. Right. So if you read one book a year, and you've got 50 years left, you're going to read 50 books, and then you're going to die. So those better be 50 good books that you choose. Or, maybe at some point in your life it's going to change. You retire, you'll be able to read more, that sort of thing. But um, I'll be honest, in the last 2 years, 3 years, it's just been purely Japanese books, like language learning books. I haven't read any, with
I,
few exceptions, haven't read very many business books or that sort of thing.
I started reading the 4 Hour Work Week just because I hate the people who do read it. So I'm like, I gotta read this. Or I don't hate the people who do read it. I hate the people who like follow it to a T and they only took like half the book, or not even half the book, like a tenth of the book, and they're like, I can only work 4 hours a week. I'm like, yeah, but you have to work 80 hours a week for 10 years first.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the whole point of the first part of the book.
Yep.
And uh, but that's why I started reading that, and I do that with a lot of books. I do it with a lot of videos too. Like I don't like to, but I feel like at some point it's kind of my job.
Yeah. I've gotten very good at quitting books too. I used to not do that. I would start reading and then I feel like obligated to finish it. because I don't know why, because I was told that it was good and therefore I should give it the full attention that it deserves. But now, like, I read page one, and if it's not slapping, I'm out.
If you can say like, oh, and anybody argues that you can't commit to a book, you can say, that's right, I commit to myself.
Yep.
This is good. I feel like this is good. I feel like we let a lot of listeners know that we do read sometimes.
Well, and before I went back to college, right, I read a lot. I read a lot more. And it's not that I'm not reading now. I'm still reading an absolute crap ton. It's just I'm reading a lot in Japanese now. So nobody's interested in that, though.
No. We should do an episode on all the books we hate.
I don't know.
I'll start it off. Grant Cardone's 10X. I'll say no more. Actually, I will. I just thought it was very redundant and unrealistic. If you like it, cool. I mean, like if you can apply those, great.
I don't know if I have books that I don't like.
I can't. If someone says you suck and the solution is just to do more, no, thank you.
That's all I got.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
See ya.